picture the morning sun, glinting off those massive, blinding gold gates of the Palace of
Oh,
Versailles.
it's a very iconic image.
Right. You are totally geared up to experience the absolute pinnacle of French royal majesty. But then the reality of the situation actually hits you.
And it's hard.
It really does. You are pinned shoulder to shoulder with literally thousands of sweating tourists. You're craning your neck, just trying to peek over this relentless sea of smartphones.
Just to get a fragmented glimpse of one chandelier in the Hall of Mirrors.
Exactly. It is the classic travel nightmare. I mean, you want that sweeping romance of the French countryside, but instead you just get the distinct feeling of being herded through a gilded hallway like livestock.
Like cattle, yeah. It's totally overwhelming.
Well, welcome to today's deep dive on the travel podcast by ExcursionPass. We're so glad you're here with us. And today we're going to explore if there is a legitimate way out of that tourist trap.
Because usually when we think of day trips from Paris, everyone immediately defaults to that exact Versailles scenario.
They do. But here on the travel podcast by ExcursionPass, our whole mission is to get ahead of your objections and your doubts. We are a pair of seasoned travel experts. We have lived these experiences, and we want to share every little detail with you.
We basically want you to feel like you were right there in France with us, riding in the passenger seat.
Right, exactly. So today, we are unpacking a highly rated alternative. It's the Fontainebleau and Vaux-le-Vicomte Castle small group day trip from Paris.
It's operated by Blue Fox Travel, and it boasts a 4.8-star rating on TripAdvisor from over 155 reviews.
So we're looking at a pretty substantial commitment here, right? Like an 8 to 10 hour day trip out of the city.
Yeah, it's a big chunk of time. And on ExcursionPass, the price starts from around 220 euros, while on TripAdvisor, you'll see it hovering around $256.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because an 8 to 10 hour day trip is a massive chunk of anyone's vacation. And I know you, listening right now, are probably preemptively doubting this, thinking, am I going to be totally exhausted by hour 6?
Or is the logistics of just getting out of Paris going to be a total hassle?
Right, so we really need to look at the mechanics of the morning routine first. Because a poorly managed departure can honestly ruin the entire day before you even see a single castle.
Oh, absolutely. The physical and mental toll of a day trip almost always comes down to the friction of those early morning logistics.
Yeah, nobody wants to start their day stressed out.
Exactly. But for this excursion, you aren't navigating some chaotic, massive bus terminal.
Thank goodness.
Right. The meetup point is at 6th Avenue de Wagram, which is in Paris's 8th arrondissement. And it's right in front of this quintessential Parisian cafe called La Flamme.
La Flamme, I love that. So you just show up there.
Yeah, you arrive 15 minutes before the 8:30 a.m. departure, and you can actually sit, have an espresso and simply watch for a gray minibus to pull up.
So there is no frantic searching for a stressed-out guide holding a brightly colored umbrella in a sea of 50 strangers.
None of that. It immediately lowers the cortisol levels.
It really does. And you're looking for a small minibus because this tour guarantees a small group dynamic. They cap it out at an absolute maximum of 8 people.
Right, with ages ranging from 7 to 99, which is great.
Yeah, that headcount changes the entire psychology of the excursion, I think. It feels so much more like a curated road trip with friends rather than a massive impersonal tourist operation.
It's an entirely different vibe.
Still, I have to push back on the timeline just a bit. Even in an intimate group, 10 hours is a marathon. How does a tour operator prevent that inevitable afternoon crash?
Well, the traveler data points directly to cognitive load and physical preservation.
Okay, what does that actually mean in practice?
So a reviewer named Julie B. specifically highlighted the pacing. The transportation is an air-conditioned minivan, which, shields you from the
It's
elements.
the heat.
Exactly. And it shields you from the sheer physical exhaustion of navigating French countryside roundabouts yourself.
Oh, driving in France can be terrifying if you aren't used to it.
Right. But here, the driver is your guide. They absorb all the stress of the route, the traffic, the parking, and, crucially, the operator provides guaranteed skip-the-long-lines access at the estates.
Which is massive. I mean, you aren't burning your precious energy standing in a holding pattern under the blazing sun for an hour just to get through a security checkpoint.
You conserve your stamina for the actual exploration.
Okay, so you have this seamless exit from the 8th arrondissement. You are heading southeast into the beautiful countryside, and the first major estate you approach is the Chateau de Vaux-le-Vicomte.
And this is just a breathtaking 17th century estate. It fundamentally altered the course of architectural history.
It's stunning.
It really is. Vaux-le-Vicomte is famous for its formal French gardens, which were designed by the landscape architects André Le Nôtre.
Le Neutre, right, a total genius.
It's complete genius. The brilliance of these gardens isn't just that they are, pretty with nice flowers. It's how they are mathematically engineered.
Oh, this is the optical illusion stuff, right?
Exactly. Le Nôtre used a technique called anamorphosis obscundita, which roughly translates to hidden distortion.
Hidden distortion. That sounds like a magic trick.
It basically is. He manipulated the topography using graded elevations and forced perspective so that as you walk, these crazy optical illusions unfold.
Give me an example of what that looks like on the ground.
So you might see a pool of water that seems incredibly close, like you could just reach out and touch it. But it might actually be a 10-minute walk away.
Wow.
Yeah, and the terrain slopes downward to completely hide a massive canal until you are literally right on top of it.
That is insane. You are literally walking through a masterclass in optical manipulation, and the history behind this place is just dripping with drama.
Oh, the drama is the best part.
It really is. So the original owner, Nicolas Fouquet, he threw this massive, incredibly opulent party in 1661 to show off this masterpiece of an estate.
A very lavish party.
Super lavish. And King Louis XIV attended. And he saw how mathematically breathtaking and magnificent the whole thing was, and he was just consumed by pure, unadulterated jealousy.
The king was not happy to be outshined.
Not at all. So literally 3 weeks later, the king had Fouquet arrested, threw him in prison for life, and literally stole his architect, his decorator, and his gardener to go build Versailles.
Just packed them up and took them. What's fascinating here is that as a visitor on this tour, you are stepping onto the prototype.
Right.
You are touring the specific catalyst for the most famous palace in the world.
It's wild to think about. But getting back to the actual mechanics of the tour itself, I did notice a piece of critical feedback from a traveler named Sharon A.
Okay, what did Sharon have to say?
She felt slightly let down upon arriving at Vaux-le-Vicomte because the guide did not actually accompany the group inside the castle walls.
Ah, right, the interior portion.
Yeah. The guides stayed back, and the guests were handed audio guides for the interior. Now, I know premium tours usually pride themselves on having the guide hold your hand the entire time. Is this hands-off approach a flaw in the itinerary?
Well, the operator, Alice, actually addressed that feedback directly, and she explained the structural philosophy of the tour.
Okay, so it's a deliberate choice.
Very deliberate. The guide's role is to provide the sweeping narrative, the political drama of Fouquet and the king, the architectural innovations. But they do this during the drive.
Ah, I see.
They deliver the grand historical framework while you are a captive audience in the minivan. Once you arrive at the estate, the structure shifts entirely to what we can call guided context plus free time.
I actually love that. It's like listening to the director's commentary on the way to a movie set. So by the time you arrive, you aren't just staring at a pile of old stones. You are walking straight into the crime scene of Louis XIV's historical jealousy.
That framing is perfectly accurate. Think about it. If a guide physically leads a group of 8 through a 17th century interior, you are forced into their specific rhythm.
Yeah, you're trapped in a crowded hallway listening to a whispered lecture.
Exactly.
Yeah.
By using the audio guide for the specific room-by-room details, you regain your autonomy.
Which is huge on a vacation.
It is. You can linger in Fouquet's private quarters if the history fascinates you, or you can skip ahead of the gardens to experience Le Nôtre's optical illusions firsthand without feeling rushed by a rigid minute-by-minute schedule.
That makes total sense. You want the deep background, but you don't want to be micromanaged on your vacation.
Nobody wants a micromanager when they're trying to relax.
Truly. So after absorbing the tragedy and triumph of Vaux-le-Vicomte, the minivan heads to the absolute heavyweight of the day.
Fontainebleau Palace.
Fontainebleau. If Vaux-le-Vicomte is the brilliant prototype, Fontainebleau is the sprawling, centuries-old epicenter of continuous royal power.
Yeah, this is a palace where French kings and emperors actually lived for 8 centuries.
800 years.
It's hard to wrap your head around. It started as a medieval hunting lodge and just kept expanding outward. Because successive monarchs wanted to leave their own mark, the palace is layered with history.
Like an architectural lasagna.
Yes. King Francois the Rester introduced the French Renaissance here, bringing in all these Italian masters. And then centuries later, Napoleon Bonaparte famously referred to Fontainebleau as the true home of kings.
The scale is just almost incomprehensible compared to the tight, unified vision of Vaux-le-Vicomte. The sources mention these sprawling gilded rooms, opulent chapel spaces, and just massive grand halls.
Massive.
But what actually anchors this for me are the sensory details from the traveler reviews. Like, Maggie Kay was struck by something as seemingly simple as the beautiful wall surrounding a garden.
A garden wall, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just highlights how, when you aren't elbowing people for space, you actually have the mental room to notice the nuanced architectural framing of the estate.
You can actually breathe and look around. Another reviewer, Julie B., had a remarkable experience during her spring visit there.
Oh, what happened?
Her group magically stumbled upon a superb equestrian show happening right on the grounds.
Wow, just right there in the open.
Yeah. And that isn't just some random tourist trap occurrence. It ties directly back to the DNA of the palace.
Oh, because it was a hunting lodge.
Exactly. Fontainebleau was historically a royal hunting lodge, deeply connected to horsemanship and the surrounding forest.
That's so cool.
Julie also mentioned running into costumed reenactors, bringing the 1700s back to life.
Imagine that, walking out of a grand royal apartment and suddenly being surrounded by people in full 18th century regalia, just strolling through the courtyard.
It creates a layer of immersion you simply cannot engineer on a massive 50-person coach tour.
You really can't. However, exploring a palace of that magnitude invariably brings up a deeply practical, logistical challenge.
Ah, I know where you're going with this.
The lunch question?
Yes, the most important part of the day.
It is. I checked the fine print, and food is not included in the ticket price for this Blue Fox travel excursion. So, where are you eating? You're out in the countryside, your energy is dipping, and the last thing you want is to fall into an overpriced, mediocre, tourist trap cafe right outside the palace gates.
That is the worst feeling. But the local expertise of the driver guide solves this completely.
Oh, really?
Yeah. A traveler going by the name Cavarangler noted that their guide, Kareem, deliberately steered their small group away from the obvious tourist spots.
Smart.
Kareem actually took them to a quote-unquote secret lunch spot tucked away in the actual town of Fontainebleau.
I absolutely love that level of insider access. I mean, you aren't just eating a pre-packaged sandwich in a designated bus parking lot.
Exactly.
You are actually absorbing the local culture of the town, sitting down in a spot the locals use, which naturally recharges you for the afternoon.
And this level of hyper-personalized care extends far beyond just finding a good restaurant. We have to look at the broader implications of accessibility.
This is a really important point.
It is. A reviewer named Dave G873 left a deeply telling account. He was experiencing some mobility difficulties during the trip.
Which can be so stressful.
Incredibly stressful. On a standard 50-person bus tour, the itinerary is utterly unforgiving. If you can't keep up with the guide's umbrella, you are left behind or forced to just sit on a bench for 2 hours.
That is the ultimate anxiety for anyone traveling with physical limitations. You are miles away from your hotel, trapped in a rigid schedule.
But Dave's experience was the exact opposite of that nightmare. Because the group was capped at 8, his guide had the actual bandwidth to adapt.
How so?
The guide actively sought out the most accessible routes. They found a specific path to that magnificent garden wall so Dave could take in the sweeping views of the estate with minimal physical strain.
Wow.
Yeah, the guide transformed from a simple lecturer into a true facilitator, ensuring every single person in that minivan experienced the space properly.
Which brings us perfectly to the underlying X factor of this entire operation.
The guide.
Yes. You can have the most breathtaking 17th century castles in Europe. You can have the climate-controlled minivan and the skip-the-line tickets. But an 8 to 10 hour day trip lives or dies on the human element.
100%.
If your guide is terrible, you are trapped in a rolling classroom with a boring history teacher for an entire day.
We have all endured that tour.
It's agonizing.
It's just a monotonous recitation of dates and dead kings that induces a coma by hour 3. The cognitive load becomes too much, your brain shuts off, and you literally stop retaining anything you're looking at.
But the guides employed by Blue Fox Travel seem to consistently crack the code. The reviews aren't just generically praising the company, they are singling out specific individuals time and time again.
Yeah, the names pop up everywhere in the data.
We just talked about Kareem, who is described as super funny and knowledgeable. Then you have Valeria, flagged as professional, informative, and entertaining.
And a reviewer specifically highlighted Brunn, noting she wasn't just an exceptionally safe driver, but she was so engaged with her group that she went out of her way to route them past an entirely extra castle that wasn't even on the official itinerary.
Just a bonus castle. I love that.
Right, and Will is repeatedly praised for being a deeply engaging and informative guide.
It is incredibly rare to see that level of consistency in the tourism industry. Looking at the operator's broader footprint on TripAdvisor, Blue Fox Travel has secured a 4.9 rating across more than 12,000 reviews.
Over 12,000. That is not statistical noise.
No, that is a systemic knack for hiring the right personalities. They clearly understand that a deep dive into French court politics requires a specific kind of delivery mechanism.
And that mechanism is balancing profound historical context with genuine humor.
Humor is so key.
It really is. When a guide understands cognitive pacing, knowing exactly when to deliver a dense fact about Renaissance architecture and when to drop a piece of scandalous court gossip about Louis XIV, they prevent information overload.
And humor is an anchor for memory, too.
Exactly. You actually remember the intricate history of Lenotre's garden designs because you were laughing at the story of the architect being kidnapped by the king.
It keeps the brain entirely engaged. You aren't passively receiving a Wikipedia summary, you are being entertained.
Which is what a vacation should be.
Exactly. So, bringing this back to the core mission for you, the listener, you are trying to maximize your limited time in Paris. You want to touch the authentic grandeur of the French royals, but you want to completely dodge the crushing stress of the Versailles crowds.
And this tour offers a highly engineered solution to that exact problem.
It really seems to.
You get a seamless, low-stress departure out of the 8th arrondissement, guaranteed line skipping to preserve your physical stamina, and a highly curated mix of narrative storytelling in the vehicle,
Right.
paired with complete autonomy inside the estates.
Plus, we have to factor in modern travel anxiety. Life is unpredictable. Flights get delayed, plans shift, kids get sick. The booking flexibility here is a massive safety net. If you book through TripAdvisor, they offer a full refund if you cancel up to 24 hours before the experience starts. And on ExcursionPass, you can secure your spot and still have free cancellation up to 1 day before the tour date.
That's incredibly reassuring. It locks in the experience while keeping your itinerary incredibly fluid.
It does.
If we connect this to the bigger picture of how we choose to spend our time and money on vacation, choosing this small group excursion over a massive Versailles bus tour is a deliberate choice for quality over proximity.
Quality over proximity. I like that.
Yeah, you are trading the most famous name for a significantly richer, more authentic experience of the history that actually created it.
You are trading elbow-to-elbow combat for a private stroll through the gardens that actually inspired the kings.
Well said. And this raises an important question, actually. Something for you to mull over long after you leave the beautiful, quiet town of Fontainebleau.
Okay, lay it on us.
Think again about the origin story of Vaux-le-Vicomte.
The prototype.
Right. We have an estate so mathematically perfect, so breathtakingly beautiful in its use of illusion and perspective, that it literally served as the direct inspiration for the most famous palace in the world, Versailles.
Yeah, because the king couldn't handle it.
Exactly. It begs a fascinating historical question.
Which is?
How many other incredible world-changing creations throughout human history were born not out of pure inspiration, but simply because someone looked at a masterpiece and thought to themselves, I am so incredibly jealous, I need to build something even bigger.
Wow. That is a wild thought to leave on. Spite and jealousy as the engines of history.
Pretty much.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on today's deep dive on the travel podcast by ExcursionPass. We hope we've helped you navigate your Paris itinerary just a little bit better, and we wish you safe and uncrowded travels.